everyone. Good afternoon. We have a quorum present, and the July 21st, 2015 Board of Education meeting is called to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I would say introduction of students or guests, but I see staff here, so I think we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move for the approval of the agenda as presented by the Agenda Planning Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Harding. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenauer. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Student concurs. Thank you. Minutes?
Yes, Madam President, I move for approval of the minutes of the work session held on Tuesday, July 7th, 2015, and that of the closed session held that same day, and that of the business meeting held on the same day.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mrs. Williams, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guestford. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? 5-0. Student concurs. There doesn't appear to be anyone here. No one is signed up, so the public comment, we will pass through that, and board member response. And we're going to move into unfinished business, consideration of some policies. Mr. Trotta.
Thank you. Good afternoon. On July 7th, the Board of Education approved the rescission of the following policies. Policy IGAK, entitled Career Technology Education. Policy IGBB, entitled Gifted and Talented Students. IGBJ, Compulsory Attendance Ages, Home Instruction. And IGCA, Summer School. Since the first reading, members of the community were requested to provide comments. We have not received any comments. The Policy Committee is requesting the approval of the second reading of these policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trotta. And Mrs. Fisher is not with us today, so I think you and Dr. Hardings will be handling any questions on policy. Is there a motion for this first consideration?
Madam President, I move to approve the second read to rescind policy IGAK, Career Technology Education, policy IGBB, Gifted and Talented Students, policy IGBJ, Compulsory Attendance Ages, Home Instruction, Home Teaching Program, and policy IGCA, Summer Schools.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenauer. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify. 5-0. Student concurs. Next consideration.
Thank you. The Policy Committee conducted a review of the 4 policies that govern school-sponsored trips. The Policy Committee recommended that policy IGC be retained and that policies IGCB, IGCBA, and IGCBB be rescinded, and the content of these 3 policies should be incorporated into policy IGC. During the first reading on July 7th, a minor amendment to policy IGC was recommended. On July 7th, the Board of Education proceeded to approve the recommendations of the Policy Committee. Since the first reading, members of the community have been offered an opportunity to provide comments. No comments have been received. During the Policy Committee's work session on July 14th, it fully endorsed the change recommended at the business meeting. The Policy Committee is recommending the approval of the second reading of these 4 policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed policy changes to policy IGC, student trips, and to rescind policy IGCB, foreign travel study programs, policy IGCBA, band trips, and policy IGCBB, orchestra and chorus trips.
Thank you. Dr. Harding, a second?
Second.
Double second. Okay, discussion. All those in favor? 5-0, student concurs. Next consideration.
Thank you. Maryland law requires all boards of education in Maryland to have a policy that governs the purchase of green product cleaning supplies. During the first reading of this proposed policy change, the Policy Committee recommended that a new section be added to the Board of Education's existing policy DJ, which is entitled Purchasing Standards. The Board of Education adopted the Policy Committee's recommendation. Since the first reading on July the 7th, the committee was offered an opportunity to provide comments. We have not received any comments. The Policy Committee is requesting the approval of the second reading of the proposed changes to policy DJ. Thank you.
Thank you. A motion, please.
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of the proposed changes to policy DJ, purchasing standards.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Mr. Ridenour. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? 5-0, student concurs. Thank you. We're moving on to new business, and these are some first reads.
Yes, thank you. As part of its comprehensive review of the instructional policies, the Policy Committee determined it was necessary to update policy IKFA, which is entitled High School Diploma World War II. This action is necessary to ensure that this policy is consistent with Section 7-206.1 of the Education Article. The updated policy and the title of the policy now refers to the Korean conflict and the Vietnam conflict and makes it clear that an individual who withdrew from high school in Washington County to enlist in the armed forces during World War II or the conflicts that have been referenced may apply to obtain a high school diploma. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Motion.
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy IKFA, high school diploma, World War II veterans.
Thank you, Dr. Harding. A second.
Second.
Mr. Ridenour. Discussion on this, Dr. Harding, you want to?
Sure,
Do it.
we've discussed this in the Policy Committee over the last number of meetings, trying to ensure that it complies with what the new policy of the state is, to expand its relevance beyond just those who may have left our schools in order to serve in World War II, but to also include the Korean conflict and the Vietnam conflict. We also wanted to add a background statement that set forth what we believe is important about it, and that's honoring those who have left our school system early in order to go and volunteer to serve their country. I think any member, and I think all of us have, who's been here when one of those veterans receives their diploma. It's a moving moment for everybody. I think this is an important way to continue to honor the service of those who served and to recognize those as well who served in Korea and who served in Vietnam, and to give them the opportunity for the same recognition and diploma that we offer to other veterans. So that's why we recommended the changes, and would hope the board would support the changes that we recommend.
Thank you, Dr. Harding. Questions? First read on this motion. All those in favor? 5-0, student concurs. Okay, moving on to second consideration or new business, several copyright policies.
Yes, this is also a first read. The Board of Education currently has 4 policies that govern the use of copyrighted materials by school employees. Based upon the Policy Committee's review of this matter, it's recommending the following action: that the Board of Education adopt one single comprehensive policy on this subject, which would be entitled Copyright Compliance. It would be labeled as Policy EGAD. And it is also recommending that the following policies be rescinded: Policy IIBCA, Reproduction of Copyrighted Materials; IIBCB, Copyrights, a non-printed material; and finally, IIBG, Computer-Assisted Instruction, Compliance with Copyrights. The Policy Committee is also recommending that the superintendent adopt an administrative regulation that provides employees with guidance on the appropriate use of copyrighted materials. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. A motion, please.
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed policy EGAD, or as Mrs. Fisher calls it, EGAD, copyright compliance, and to rescind policy IIBCA, reproduction of copyrighted materials, policy IIBCB, copyrights non-print materials, and policy IIBG, computer-assisted instruction, compliance with copyrights.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenour. Discussion, Dr. Hardings, would you like to speak to this?
Sure. We discussed this over a number of meetings, and most of the conversation centered around, do we need to keep a policy on this? Because most things regarding copyright are in other provisions of law. One of the reasons that we sort of came to the, we did come to the conclusion that it made sense to keep it is because the requirements are in so many different parts of the law, as well as these are things that teachers and our employees are dealing with on a daily basis as they're preparing instructional materials for their classroom. So we thought it was important to have one place where we brought all this information together and to then provide the basis for the superintendent to write a regulation that would help our employees know what the rules are on a day-to-day basis for our expectations or his expectations for how they're going to work with copyrighted materials. So I guess the only question we really had was, should we keep a policy? And we thought on balance that it made sense to, given the things that I mentioned previously.
Thank you. Questions? All those in favor? 5-0, student concurs. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Moving on to a consent agenda, if Ms. Freeman is here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Brightman, Dr. Wilcox, and members of the board. There's 7 items on your consent agenda this afternoon. The Procurement Review Committee has reviewed these items, and the superintendent has authorized them for your review today. Staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Again, this requires a motion before discussion.
Madam President, I move to approve the following. First, bids proposals for Microsoft software to Bell Technologies at $179,437.77. Approval of Clear Spring Middle High School school site lighting upgrades to Ellsworth Electric at $177,700. Extend the long-term disability insurance to Cigna Group Insurance at 29 cents per $100 of covered payroll. Rescind from Expedix the renewal of bid number 2014-72, maintenance and support of, I'll move on, maintenance and support of the Advantage software to VersaFit Technologies at $66,353. Library media content software renewal to Library Video Company at $70,255. And finally, library managed system renewal to Follett Software at $53,570.70.
Thank you, Mr. Ridenour. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. Okay. Questions?
I'll just offer one
Dr.
comment
Harris?
again on the, similar to a comment I made a few meetings ago, particularly with respect to the Clear Spring bid on the lighting upgrade. It was great to see the bid actually come in at about half of what the estimate was. Lest anybody think that the estimate was too high, one of the other bidders was almost dead on what the estimate was. So it really looks like we're getting a great deal there and great savings, and maybe that gives us the opportunity to work on some other projects that we might not have otherwise been able to. So thanks to the facilities team and the procurement team for bringing those savings forward and getting us a good project.
Appreciate the recognition. Thank you.
Questions? I have one on the second project, the Clear Spring Middle and again high school site lighting upgrade. If I remember with some legislation a couple years ago, or maybe it was a regulation, that any time we changed electrical or made upgrades at a school, that school immediately fell under a MEMA type. Does this trigger that?
This did not trigger that, to my knowledge. Anytime we do a service upgrade, so if we were to provide new service into the school or complete new switchgear or something substantial like that, MEMA would be involved. The HVAC project at Tech High was one. We were early on in the MEMA process wondering whether that would trigger something, be significant amount of electric involved in that upgrade. And that did not trigger anything. It's really much more service coming to the school, adding the generator, switch gear, those types of opportunities, because they're all about adding generator capacity.
So we're under the radar on the MEMA
Correct.
on this project. Thank you. Appreciate it. One more pass. Additional questions or comments? Okay, the question is on the consent agenda before us with Mr. Ridenour's motion. All those in favor? 5-0. Student concurs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilcox, we're up to your report or update.
Thank you. Really just a couple of things to inform the board and the community, particularly those teachers who are watching today. It's an important day for you if you shop at the Valley Mall. This evening is Educators Night Out. There will be substantial discounts throughout the mall for you, as well as some free drawings to win money to deck out your classroom. My understanding is they'll be giving at least 10 $50 gift certificates away to support classroom projects. The meeting will take place before you go out and shop. Right inside the front doors to the mall, I believe there is a restaurant, Red Robin, that's there, and people will congregate in that area and then go about their savings. It's a nice thing for the team at the mall to do for our teachers and support staff, so I encourage them to consider going out this evening. Secondly, I want to just mention that on August 6th, that's a Thursday, it's the last open Thursday before teachers come back to the school district. And that day, at our elementary schools across the county, we will have the class lists up. So for those people who want to know what class their children are in and they're not checking some of the electronic systems, we've made some decisions this year that will say on August 6th, those records will be up and they'll also be available in the portal. That's a Thursday or a Friday evening. Either way, it's August 6th. I know that date. I believe it's a Thursday. I also want to share that the first day of school is August 19th. And for those folks who are having their first interaction with the school system, please make sure that you've completed all the necessary steps so that we can best accommodate your children. At some grades that requires shot updates. At other places it simply requires making sure that you are appropriately registered and you have the school supplies that are necessary to be successful in class. And finally, to the board, I wanted to share that we're making very good progress on the academic hub. We expect best and final bids to be due to the school board on August 7th. We will review those best and final bids and make a recommendation to the board in early September. So to our larger community, I want to report that we're making good and steady progress on the academic hub. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. It's hard to think we're talking about the first day of school already.
Less than 30 days away.
It is that, indeed. Personnel, Mrs. Francisco, you're already up here. Thank you.
Mrs. Brightman, Dr. Wilcox, members of the board. As discussed earlier in closed session, there are several personnel actions for your review and approval this afternoon.
Thank you. A motion on the recommended personnel action.
So moved, Madam President. Move for
Mr.
acceptance.
Mr. Ridenour, thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Guessford? All those in favor of staff recommended personnel? Thank you. 5-0, and student abstains. Thank you. Reports to the board. Ms. Greenwald.
So right now, County SGA, we've just been meeting with our exec board, and right now all we've really been doing is planning where our general assemblies will be for the upcoming year. We rotate them all around the county. We have them here actually every other month. And right now we're just trying to make a list of some speakers and guests that we would like to have come to.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Williams.
I have nothing. The Facilities Committee is not meeting this month. I have nothing.
Anything from MABE?
Not at this time.
Diversity?
No.
Want to be sure I don't leave any report out.
Nothing to update since the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Guessford.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Ridenour.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, moving on. Hardings, anything?
I'll report on policy for Mrs. Fisher.
Yes.
The policy committee met on July 14th. We reviewed the policies that are on the agenda today. We also discussed the outcome of the work session we had regarding board communications and started to set up our schedule for reviewing the policies that were recommended to come to the policy committee out of that work session. We also, staff prepared a list of what the policy committee has done since in the 6-month period beginning January 1st and ending June 30th. In that time, we've reviewed 32 separate policies. We've updated 6 different policies, of course, recommended to be updated to the board. We've recommended for rescission 10 different policies to the board and currently have action pending or under review 16 different policies. We are optimistic that we can get through the Section I policies by the end of this calendar year, which was our goal at the beginning of the year, is to get through all the instructional policies. We still have some other policies to go back and pick up as a result of the ad hoc committee's work and some other policies that we'd left on hold, I think, last year. Our next meeting will be on August 10th at 1:30 in the board conference room.
Thank you very much. Mr. Guessford, I think you're the only curriculum instruction member here. Anything from that committee that you would like to share with us at this time?
No.
Okay. Very good. We'll move on to future agenda items. I think the most, unless I've forgotten something, double checking. Okay. Wanting to share, because September may be a little confusing, so I'm going to mention this again at each of the, this meeting and each of the August meetings. Our second meeting in September, instead of being on the 3rd Tuesday, will be on the 4th Tuesday, which is the 22nd, rather than the 15th. A recommendation to committee chairs, because the 22nd is usually committee day. This is an evening meeting, so there's still an opportunity to continue the committee meetings that day, or you have the 2nd or 5th Tuesdays that you can work with as well. So just wanting to give you a heads up and give the public a heads up. That will be our first evening meeting, and we'll start back on our regular schedule of the first Tuesday being a daytime meeting, and the second, the 3rd Tuesday being an evening meeting. Okay. Board member comments. Mr. Ridenour.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Guessford.
I don't have anything for today.
Dr. Hardings.
I just want to welcome our student board members, since I didn't do it at the last meeting. It's nice to have you here. I hope you won't be shy about saying what you think and telling us where you think we're on the right track or where we're on the wrong track. We certainly value your opinion, and I hope you'll share it with us generously. Just a warning, not all meetings are as fast as the last two you've attended. There will be some where you might be saying, how long is this going to go on? No. But it's nice to have you here. Welcome, and we look forward to working with you for the next year.
Good point. Mrs. Williams,
I have nothing at this time, thank you.
any additional comments, Ms. Greenwald? Dr. Hardings, Dr. Wilcox?
None.
Okay. We are at the end of the agenda. This may be one of the shortest meetings in history, and I appreciate my colleagues' contribution today, and we are adjourned.